Yes, hello everybody, and welcome to another edition of Full Course Yellow. It's good to have you back at the new later time of 10 o'clock, straight after In Pit Lane. If you're joining us straight from Channel 31's telecast of In Pit Lane this evening, or from the premiere on YouTube, welcome along. We've got the crew are with us again. We'll just add Pete. He's had some internet problems, but he's back with us now, and I'll just add him to the stream as well. He's back, so as you can see, Chris Ritchie is with us again, as is Peter Johnson, and Dave Stillwell joining us as well. So good evening. Nice quick show, because we are on at the later time of 10 o'clock, so we don't want to be here until midnight. Some of us have got things to do, hence that Doc isn't with us again this week. He's umpiring. It's football final season, and he's umpiring various suburban and country football matches all over the place over the next few days. So he's getting his sleep and preparing for the big match. He's got his pre-game ritual is on. So Doc will be joining us hopefully when the footy season sort of winds down at the local level. But anyway, let's find out what's been happening. It hasn't been a huge weekend in motorsport news. I suppose the big talking point is still Daniel Ricciardo, although we're probably no further advanced than we were last week. Although it's interesting that some people who are in the know were saying before the show that Chris Medlin, who's a very well respected journalist in Formula One circles, has been saying that regardless of what happens with Pierre Gasly, whether Pierre Gasly is in fact released from his Red Bull contract and replaced by Colton Herta, or in fact Curtin Holter, who apparently, which is what I said on the news tonight, he's been told by the higher ups at Renault, by Renault's CEO and also Alpine's CEO, that at their level, as far as they're concerned, Daniel will not be part of that team. So unfortunately, that looks like the Alpine opportunity might be closed to Daniel. So anybody, Pete, what's the latest that you've heard on the Ricciardo and Formula One?
I've heard front? that Daniel has said he wants to get the triple headers out of the way, so that to divorce a little bit of emotion from it all, and then he'll make a decision.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. He's put his hand up as well and raised the possibility of becoming a test driver. And it's also interesting that the other option that's come up and that was Jenson Button, who is, and he admits that he is doing work for Williams at the moment. He's doing some consulting work for Williams F1, but he was very, very keen on pointing Daniel towards the Williams opportunity, because he said, they've got new ownership, they've got a new car. The new car is coming along a lot better, it's a lot stronger, and he felt that it would be a great fit to have somebody like Daniel in, someone where they could build the team around him for the next few years, take advantage of his experience in order to develop these new cars, and have someone that they can sort of get a good sounding board for the new ideas. So it may not be the worst option in the world, but the other thing that, as we said, is that he is sort of putting up his hand and saying, I might be interested in becoming a test driver or a reserve driver as well. And you can imagine that a few teams might be very keen to have somebody as experienced, someone with the benefit of over 10 years of Formula One experience and 8 wins behind them, actually in the simulator and on the test track, testing things out. Dave, what do you think? If we'll put you on, you're Daniel Ricciardo, and you've got a few options. You can't go back to Alpine. You've got the possibility of Haas or Williams or possibly. Yeah, I think that's probably it really at this stage. Well, where do you go?
Well, I think this becomes one of the biggest challenges for a Formula One racer is, we saw it through Mark Webber's career. It was, right team, wrong time. He had an opportunity to go to, Renault or Jaguar to start off with, and then he missed going to Renault through that massively successful period where Fernando Alonso won 2 world championships. So, unfortunately, the decision will only be deemed, whatever decision he makes, will only be able to determine whether that was the right or wrong decision in hindsight. Williams, certainly with the performances from Alex Albon recently, they've been showcasing that at certain tracks with the way their car's set up, they do have a performance, a car that's capable of running in the top 10. And certainly that would be an improvement for where Daniel's been running some of the most recent events.
It'll be interesting this weekend too. I mean, at Monza, because I mean they were very good at Spa in that low downforce configuration, and they've already said, as we see on the ticker below, they said they're going to go ultra low downforce and maximise straight line speed at Monza, which a lot of the teams will do. But I think they're very, very confident of having a really good performance at Monza coming up this weekend, because they feel that car in a straight line is as competitive as anybody.
Yeah, definitely. And again, this comes back to the challenges of Formula One, is that you basically bake in the performance potential of your car into the basic design construction effectively at the start of the year beforehand, when you start designing the car, building the tub, getting it crash tested before you go into the next season. Haas is an interesting discussion point. There's been rumours about Gene looking to move the team on or find additional investment. Obviously, they've had to discontinue their relationship with their former major sponsor and former driver, without a huge amount of love lost from anyone else in the paddock about that departure. Williams was, as we understand from some of the Piastri negotiations, may have been preparing to have an Australian turn up there for a year or two anyway. So maybe, there's some cold beer in the fridge and a couple of packs of Tim Tams already lined up at the Williams factory for an Australian to arrive. I have to stick my hand up and apologise to everyone last week. I got caught out by a fake Alpine F1 team Twitter account last week. So going into last week's show, I thought that Danny Rick had been announced as the replacement for Fernando Alonso at Alpine F1. So both myself and a number of people on Twitter got caught out by that one. As Mad Cow Mark throws in, I heard Danny Rick is not happy with Zach Brown because his car had a 2019 rear wing for the race. Anyone heard if this is true? I find that hard to believe, because the 2019 aero specifications are completely different from 2022.
Yeah,
so
it wouldn't be legal. The regulations for this year are the rear wing is radically different from what was allowed last year. So that wouldn't be the case. But that's the problem in this situation. I mean, Daniel's been so far off the pace on some occasions that you do start looking sideways and thinking, well, I wonder if he is getting a fair go or not. But I mean, at this stage in particular, I mean, you imagine the team would want every single constructor's point that they could get, and that they wouldn't, a team as professional and as large as McLaren wouldn't be as petty as to say, let's just basically sabotage, Daniel's rest of the season because we don't want to be embarrassed by him coming through. As someone said, they said, remember, Daniel won this race last year. How embarrassing would it be for McLaren if he got up and actually did it again this year? I don't think they'd be terribly upset. I think they'd probably prefer that Lando would win it. If one of their cars is going to win it, I'm sure they'd much rather it was Lando. But they're not going to knock back a win by Daniel if they can take it.
No, and we saw throughout the last couple of years that fight between McLaren and Alpine for who finishes fourth and fifth behind Mercedes, Ferrari, and Red Bull. That's worth a substantial amount of money in the end of year, in the following year's prize money distributions. So I don't think they're the team that's likely to do anything petty. But Daniel certainly hasn't certainly put a foot wrong in terms of the manner in which he's conducted himself throughout all of these discussions. He's had all and sundry thrown at him by media outlets from across the world in terms of whether or not he's still got it, or whether or not he's being browbeaten by a younger teammate. I think regardless of what direction Danny chooses to go for next year or into the future, he'll make the right call for him based on what he considers to be important in his life, and whether that's giving up a race seat at a lower end team to get a test or reserve driver role at a higher end team. That's a decision that only he and his management team can make. We're not privy to all the decision-making criteria that he does. I certainly think that whatever decision he makes will only be able to determine whether that was the right one or not after a couple of years to see whatever team he ends up at, how they do in the next season or two.
Yeah, I think it's going to be interesting. As Dave drops out at this point, we might as well take that opportunity to catch up with the roll call. Got started a bit quick tonight. Boxer switched over from Channel 31. Yes, In Pit Lane returned to Channel 31 tonight. Make sure you're watching on 9:30 every Thursday night on Channel 31. Or we also premiered the show tonight. As if you watch the show live, or if you watched at least half the recording of the show live on Tuesday, you'd realise we had some massive problems with audio with the band, and in the end we had to dub some music over the top of them, so it was very subpar. Now I've been told today we have rebooked the band for later in the season, and hopefully by that time we'll have all of the problems sorted out. They did apparently the techs in at RMIT have been working all day on trying to track down exactly what went wrong there, but it's a massive system there. It's a massive IP, Dante audio over IP, and it's very complicated, and something went wrong last night that we just couldn't... So for the first time in the show's history, we had to pull the plug in the middle of a live show, so a bit disappointing, but these things happen. Welcome to G'day Mad Cow Mate. Yes, love the shirts Sweet Chancellor were wearing, very loud, so loud they blocked out the sound of the band. Yeah, yes, very, very much so. That was there, but the guys took it really well. I must say that with all the problems that we had, they were very good humoured about it and just said, look, these things happen. We appreciate the chance to be on. Unfortunately, what happened, we've had to, if you watch the YouTube channel version, we had to actually take down the music, because when I posted it to premiere earlier in the day, we immediately got a copyright strike on the music, so we had to mute that in order to get on air. So unfortunately,
were they doing a cover?
No, it was original. It was their publishing. It was the publishing company.
Oh, okay.
So it was this is increasingly a problem on YouTube. Bands are signing up to these in order to protect themselves. They're signing up to these publishing organisations around the world who have deals with Content ID deals with YouTube, and so a lot of stuff, even if it's sort of local bands like Sweet Chancellor and a couple of other bands that we've had just in the last series, that it will suddenly flag up as being copyright, and then it depends on what they do with it. Sometimes it's you acknowledge it, they will take some small share, or they might just shut you down completely. But anyway, so if you have a look at the YouTube channel and I throw to the band and it suddenly goes quiet, that wasn't our fault in this case. Okay, good day to Jeff, good day to Mad Cow Mark, as I said before. Good to see you, Jeff. Tony, good to see you, Tony. We'll be in touch with those photos for the back of the. I think some good photos. Tony sent us some photos to put on our new backdrop on our monitors, and I've got to get some high res versions of some of those, and we'll put them up in the next couple of weeks. G'day to Brett Sellers as well. How are you? Paul Vandenacker is with us again. I don't think that's such a rumour. I think that he is. I think that he is probably a certainty. If he's not driving somewhere next year, and if he wants to, I think he could walk into. He'll walk into the Sky commentary team pretty easily. I think they'd be very, very keen to have him. But Adam is saying that he's replacing Hamilton, which if. Do you think that's a possibility? If at the end of the year Lewis says, "I've got nothing more, that's it. I'm going off to be a fashion designer or save the world or whatever it is that he's planning to do." Do you think that if he left, that Mercedes might turn around and say, "Well, Dan Ricciardo's not the worst option we've got"?
There is that, but Mercedes also have a number of other drivers in their stable, be it ones they've had in their test and reserve driver role, drivers they've farmed out to their Formula E program. It's a possibility, but which bookie wants to take the odds on Lewis Hamilton not being on the grid in 2023?
I don't think that will happen, because I think he still feels slighted about last year, and I think he would want to win if he would want to try and win another championship on his own merit rather than it being controversial or even handed to him via penalties and things. I think he'd want to win it, convincingly.
Yeah, he's got plenty. He's certainly got plenty of motivation to stay. I think it's just a matter of him being confident that the team is going to have the product next year. And they are, they're obviously improving, and you would think that in light of what they've learned from the new regulations this year, that when they get to next year's car, it's going to be considerably better than what they started with this year. They went a little bit different. They went a little bit left of field, and that didn't work entirely. So I think next year will be a more, it'll probably look like the Red Bull. I think pretty much everything next year will look like the Red Bull. Good day to our sponsor, Roy from Virtual R from Online Invent. Once again, thank you to Online Invent for making it possible for In Pit Lane to return to Channel 31 for this particular season. As we say, that there are, even though it's a volunteer thing, there are certainly lots of costs involved, and we couldn't possibly do it without the support of people like Roy and Online Invent. So once again, as we said on the program, if you're looking to get involved in marketing, having a website and all that SEO stuff and all the stuff that I don't understand about marketing via the internet and social media, contact Roy at Online Invent and have a word to him about that. So that will be once again, thank you to him as well.
I see a comment from Mad Cow Mark. He heard that the other story was Zach Brown offered him Daniel a drive in Indy, and Daniel knocked it back. Is that true? And it is true. He was offered other opportunities within McLaren, and he knocked them back.
Yeah, he was offered both the IndyCar, and the interesting thing about IndyCar is, what does his existing IndyCar drivers think about that? Because it was, a very public offer that, if you want to drive IndyCar. So, which one of his current IndyCar drivers was he getting rid of? The other one was
not just the current IndyCar drivers. How many of the 11 drivers that McLaren had lined up to race their IndyCars next year were they going to give the boot to?
Yeah, I think that's it. It's because this whole thing is also playing out almost in similar sort of circumstances to the Piastri thing over at IndyCar at the moment with Alex Palou and with Chip Ganassi and all that. So that looks like ending up in court. So that's interesting. Is that Chip Ganassi said he's confident that they will get a good season, the rest of the season out of Alex, and that he will help Scott Dixon wherever possible to get up. But once again, too, congratulations to Scotty McLaughlin. That was an amazing performance on the streets of Portland, and what a weekend for this part of the world. It was, as I said, Anzac Day. The 1, 2, 3, New Zealand, Australia, New Zealand, an all-Antipodean podium.
You mean an anti-podium?
An anti-podium.
Yeah. And on the back of that was the multiple-year contract extension that Scott McLaughlin has signed with the Penske Corporation, which just goes to show the commitment that's come, If we take nothing else away from the Penske time involvement in the Supercars Championship, is that they recognise that someone from essentially a touring car background, racing in essentially a close to spec tin top series, was able to develop the skills and the acumen and the professionalism to be able to race for effectively the biggest business to business linking automotive organization in the world. I think that speaks volumes for the way in which the Supercars community nurtures young talent, how it professionalizes them, how it trains them, how it helps them develop some unique characteristics in themselves, but how polished they are and just at what high level they're racing at. And if you manage to catch this year's season of Inside Line, which of course is the Supercars version of Drive to Survive, so to speak, in 2021 they were following Red Bull Racing. Sorry, the Red Bull Ampol Racing team, I should say. And it's interesting to see, Scott McLaughlin's been tapped on the shoulder for a couple of interviews for it, reflecting on his time racing against them. But the words that he, all the stuff that we're saying about Scott McLaughlin, it's stuff that we also say about Shane Van Gisbergen as well, in terms of, the multifaceted talent, the way they conduct themselves, and just at what a high level some of the people in this neck of the woods are capable of racing at.
Well, it was interesting. I mean, when the guys were over for the Bathurst 12 hour, and racing for Triple Eight with the Mercedes, a couple of the drivers and the people from AMG and the teams from the DTM and others went back, and they all said, look, we've learned a lot from Triple Eight and how they approached the Bathurst 12 hour, and there was stuff that they were saying, we're definitely going back and taking this with us, because they've certainly taught us lots of stuff. So very very highly regarded around the world. The interesting thing was, as I said to Scott, when I interviewed him, when this was originally announced, and I caught up with him up in Sydney at the supercar launch for his last year, I mentioned the fact that he really has virtually no open wheel experience at all, and to jump out of, it's not just the fact that he's jumped out of touring cars into open wheelers and ultimately been successful. He's been successful so quickly. We've seen people come from other open wheels, other open wheel series, and go into something like IndyCar and get onto the ovals and all that and really struggle. And yet he's taken to it like a duck to water.
Yeah, but we've seen that, of course, when some of the Supercars drivers, they are such a tricky beast to handle, have gone and tried their hand at overseas racing. They've often been, immensely successful. I think about people like, Warren Luff and all the time he spent, driving, GT cars around the Nürburgring. I think of Craig Lowndes and the time he spent, racing at Spa and at Le Mans. Shane Van Gisbergen the same. Jason Bright even, when he was able to tee up that time at Le Mans in a GTE AM Ferrari, I believe. Even to the fact, world-renowned endurance racers, have spent time in a supercar, and it's benefited their driving overall. Consider, you talk about Mercedes drivers, Maro Engel came out for the first year of the Erebus program and spent a year, admittedly with some, big technical challenges at the first year of Erebus in supercars. But look at the heights that his career has gone to now in GT, in Formula E, and DTM. So this part of the world, we do get, we have that tall poppy syndrome, we have the knockers, how could it possibly be as good as it is? And then, you have Scott McLaughlin go and basically running at the front of IndyCar within a year or two. And look at his teammates, or his main rivals in the series. Scott Dixon, he spent a bunch of time in a supercar as well, and Will Power, he's had a couple of runs as well. So,
yeah, we remember that. Chaz Mostert, a BMW would have him back tomorrow. He won the GTE, the GTD category at
GTLM.
Daytona. And they'd have him back. I believe they'd have him back tomorrow. They were very keen to keep him there, but he wanted to come back and race here and to be with the family and all the rest of it. But he certainly, I think, if he chose to put up his hand and take off overseas, I think he'd pick up something pretty quickly too. So there.
Actually, it'd be interesting. Just on that note, obviously, one of the things that's coming out of this Formula One discussion is, how many super license points did you say it was Curtin Holter?
Curtin Holter.
Curtin Holter.
Curtin Holter, yes, the well-known American Syndicar driver or whatever. Yes, it was a major spoonerism.
I'd be interested to see, based on his results in IndyCar the last couple of seasons and his previous season's Supercars results, how many F1 super license points would Scott McLaughlin have by now?
Yeah, that's interesting. I'm not sure how many they get for Super, but he certainly did enough winning to sort of pick up whatever there was. I mean, I know there is. You can go online. You could probably work it out. I mean, are we starting that rumour? Scott McLaughlin to Formula One confirmed.
Quick, I'll just call Noonan. I'll call Shane Rogers. Give me a sec.
Yeah. Yes, I think that it would be interesting. I mean, the other thing that he's got long term with Penske, of course, is that Penske's involvement in other series such as NASCAR and, of course, in particular WEC, and the Porsche is now. It was testing at Daytona this week, the new Porsche LMDH car, the GTP car. So that is testing what they've decided not to run. They were going to make a sort of an early an off-Broadway appearance at the end of year round of the World Endurance Championship. Yeah, sort of. So, but they've now decided they're not going to do that. They're going to put their focus in on making the big debut at Daytona next year. But that's all looking very good. So at some stage, it wouldn't surprise me at all that they might not say to Scott, whether it's for those major races like Daytona and dare I say it, Le Mans, that they might put his name forward.
Yeah. What's interesting though, I think, with Scott McLaughlin is that through his time in Supercars, he didn't do an awful lot of extracurricular activities. So someone like a Shane Van Gisbergen or a Cam Waters, a David Reynolds, a Will Brown, they do a bit of GT racing. They might do a bit of, Trans Am or some TCR, things like that. Shane Van Gisbergen, of course, will race anything with 4 wheels on it and sometimes fewer wheels. Whereas Scott McLaughlin, probably a little bit like Jamie Whincup, very focused on, I'm doing Supercars. This is where my focus is, meticulous, organised, focused on that. The speculation was before he ended up in IndyCar was that he was going to be ending up in a NASCAR program because of their transition to the current generation car being very similar to a supercar.
Except for the fact that it keeps bursting into flame.
Well, that is a problem. I mean, maybe they just, maybe they put a little bit too much Ferrari DNA into the new next generation NASCAR. I mean,
NASCAR have announced that they are going to make some changes because that a lot of the drivers were getting particularly angry about the fact that they were suddenly driving along and going, "Is it getting warm? I know it's hot, but is it getting warm in here?"
Yeah. Maybe, the car was designed and engineered by Dallara. Maybe some of that Ferrari, that penchant for what they call on the internet, the Ferrari flambe, on the burnt out supercar Rex. Maybe a little bit of that DNA found its way into the Dallara factory when they designed the next generation supercar.
What's that, Chris?
Oh, maybe they copied the Ford Pinto fuel system.
Yes, that was there. I think we're still allowed to say that. I think all the court cases are finally finished after all this time. It's as people are saying down here, a lot of respect for him. As Mad Cow Mark, we just quickly, because we want to finish up in just a moment, we'll just go out with a bit of MotoGP stuff as well, because Doc's not here. But Jack Doohan and Christian Mansell both punted off the track on the weekend. Mansell is really starting to develop. He was sort of, he was consistently, in sort of midfield and at that level, but he's now really come on strong in the past year. So he's looking like a very, very good racer as well. Also, our mate Hugh Barter won 2 races in the Spanish Formula 4 Championship. Finished second in the second race. Is currently running second in that particular series as well. I think is running second in the French series, and that's only by dint of the fact that because he's running the Spanish series, the French Formula 4 Championship has a typically French rule which says that if you run in another series and you run on the same track in that other series, you won't be eligible for points on that particular track. So when they went to, I think it was Spa, unfortunately, even though Hugh won the race, he got 0 points for it, which is just ridiculous. But if he got those points, he would probably be well in command at the French Championship as well. But he's certainly looking. I had a word with Hugh and his father just recently, and they're certainly looking at their options for next year. And there's hopefully some pretty exciting news coming out about the future for Hugh Barter as well. So some more talented Australians getting out there and doing well. Jen saying that if Indy Lights were given the same points as Formula 2, we'd have over 60 super license points. I think this is based around Colton. There's no doubt, I mean, he should have, I mean, even just what he's done in IndyCar alone, he should have the points to go into Formula 1. I mean, it's basically the European snobbery that's sitting there and, it can't be anywhere near as good as Formula 1, so we won't give it the points it deserves. But I mean, he's done pretty well. He deserves to, the top drivers in IndyCar should be able to go into Formula 1 because they're well and truly capable.
I think was it Will Buxton who made the comment? Thank God for the super license that was brought into place to prevent someone from going basically straight from regional Formula 3 into Formula 1, because that driver's basically done nothing except win 20, 30, 40 races in the last 5 or 6 years, won a championship, dominating everyone. Thank God for the super license program, because we definitely don't want that happening again, do we?
Well, I mean, sort of probably the last time it happened, there was some kid called Hamilton. I mean, I don't know what happened to him, but he fast-tracked into Formula 1 and was never heard of again. So, Mansell can't beat Ollie Goethe for the championship in Euro Formula, which is a shame because Goethe is he's a lovely individual if you find out more about him, and but he's obviously a very talented driver. He's very, very fast, and he's got a lot of resources, and he may even make it into Formula 1 pretty quickly as well if he keeps going along this trajectory. But he's got a habit of not exactly playing nice with other drivers and with other people. Does not play well with others. Okay, now with MotoGP stuff, MotoGP testing, and Marc Marquez has come out. Last time I had a look, he was in 13th position after his long break. So his first ride back on the bike again, and he's up there and he's thereabouts, and apparently is feeling pretty good. So won't be long until we back in MotoGP. Also, Johan Mir has said that he will probably be at the next round. He's was out with injury, but he's going to be probably back on the bike for the upcoming round. So so that's a bit of MotoGP news. I think that's about all we've got. Yeah, I'll just say quickly, because it's been raised by Russell, hoping Stan recovers its integrity and rebrands. For those of you who don't know, Stan Sports have launched last week a brand new weekly motorsport program called Not in Pit Lane. So Pit Lane is there, and it's already caused us some hassles. The only thing I want to say, and I'll say this on the program there, but I'll say to you guys who are watching, our most loyal viewers, thank you to everybody who's been. We've just had a tidal wave of support from all sorts of people, including public support, but even private support from people who, for various reasons can't go public because of their involvement at various top levels of the sport, who have said, look, this is wrong. The upsetting thing is that, the Stan Sport know about it. Apparently it has been raised with them, and their attitude is, it's a community television show from Melbourne. Who gives us stuff? No one will care. This will all blow over in 5 minutes, and so they're not going to do anything. I've got a meeting. One of the things I've got to get to there is I've got a meeting tomorrow with with a lawyer, and we're going to talk about what options we might have. So that's tomorrow morning. So I'm going to be.
The good thing is in motorsport is that you tend to be able to get in touch with quite a few professionals in the legal profession.
Yes, and they have been in touch with us too. So thank you to all of those people who have been in touch and said, hey, listen, I raced at the state level. I raced it there. You've covered me in the past. If you need a hand, would be happy to give you some advice. So thank you to everybody once again. Hey, listen, yes, once again, look, this is my thing, Mad Cow Mark, and thank you so much to Mark for the Patreon, for his support. But I really don't understand Patreon. It created a rod for our own back. We were going to do all sorts of things with it, and it never. But regardless of that fact, people like particularly Mad Cow, and a couple of others who have really got involved and are supporting the program through Patreon, and it all adds up. I mean, as I said, if everybody, if we got 10, 15 people doing it, if we get 20 people, it all adds up, and it helps pay for all those little things like, and I can tell you that I can tell Mad Cow that the Patreon payment that I got I took out some money from Patreon for the first time the other day, and that basically is part of the reason we're able to cover the Nostalgia Nationals this weekend up at Heathcote Park, which I'm really looking forward to. Speaking of drag racing, the FIA Euro Formula Euro Drag Racing Championships are on this weekend at Santa Pod. They are, in fact, they've started today. The live stream is on all weekend. It's on now. So if you've got time and you want to stay up late and watch some more drag racing, you can flick over at the end of this to Santa Pod, and that'll be all weekend as well. And there'll be some all the top drag races in Europe, Top Fuel, Funny Car, Pro Stock Bike, all of those categories in action at Santa Pod. Okay, everybody, coming up this week on In Pit Lane, we've got Troy Williams is joining us. He's the category manager for Production Cars, the Australian Production Car Championship. They're going to be in action at Sandown in a couple of weeks for the Shannon's Australian Motorsport Championships. They've got 4 30-minute races, and yes, Production Cars, they've got a really good field. It's over 30 cars, I believe.
It's very well subscribed.
Yeah, looking very strong.
Yeah, one of the interesting things that's changed with Australian production cars this year is that they no longer have a single control tyre. So the competitors have the option of 3 different tyres, which they have to nominate before the weekend. So a number of competitors running Hankook, a number of competitors running Yokohama. These are all on the production car tyre list. Of course, Yokohama was announced during the week will be the control tyre for the New South Wales production car series in 2023 and onwards. Of course, Yokohama's got a long history in both production and improved production categories. And of course, that's true also for the Queensland production car series. They run to any tyre on the Motorsport Australia production car tyre list. The standout still is the Bathurst 6 Hour. That event for the last several years has run with the stipulation that competitors must run the MRF tyre, although I'm not sure how much longer the contract is for that particular event. I'd certainly say the competitor body has spoken. When I looked through the entry list for the Sandown event and all the tyre nominations, there was an awful lot of Hankook, there was an awful lot of Yokohama, and I didn't see many people nominating to run MRS for that event. So
thanks for the money. Thanks for the money, MRF. But do you mind if we use somebody else's tyre?
Yeah. So these cars, of course, are the same cars you'll see racing at the High Tech Oils Bathurst 6 Hour on the Easter long weekend. So production car racing certainly going through a bit of revival. These are the cars that basically drive out of the showroom into a garage, throw a roll cage in them, suspension, some brake calipers, a couple of bushings, an exhaust, a bit of a tune, and some safety equipment. And that's basically all you're allowed to do to them. There's some absolute weapons at the front of the field. We're talking OE levels of design and engineering. We've got Ralph Bellamy, former F1 engineer, working alongside Berwick Linton and the crew from the Berwick Linton BM service garage, building front-running BMWs right through to the back end of the field. And our friend, Michael Hopp and his team from Champ Racing,
yes,
running the little 1.6 litre Suzuki Swifts. So there's something for everyone up and down the field in production car racing. Of course, running the 30-minute format means they don't have to do refueling, so it keeps the cost down for competitors, and it means they can still run 2 drivers and split the costs over the weekend. So
yeah, that's what Michael was doing. We had Michael on the show, like last week on the story from the Tampa Motorsports Day with their enduro, and the car they were running out there, they picked up from as a write-off up in Sydney, a hail damage write-off, the little Suzuki Turbo, and I mean it looks like a golf ball, perhaps hidden aerodynamics,
speed holes, like a golf ball.
Yep. So they ran that, but they picked that up for sort of sub 5. And obviously if they want to get it to decent standard to run at but they are evaluating it as to possibly run in things like the Bathurst 6 Hour, and even if they've got to spend a bit of money on sort of getting rid of all the 1,001 little dents out of it, it's going to be a relatively cheap way to go, and they've got 3 or 4 drivers they can share the cost with.
Absolutely, and that's some of the racing that I'm looking forward to getting up to this weekend at the Harrop 4 Hour.
Yes, we were going to have, the original plan was we asked both Ben Schutz and Dean Lilly if they'd come, but we never got a response. I spoke to Ben about coming onto the program and talk about the event last week, but unfortunately they never got back to us. Sent them a couple of emails, but they've never responded. So we don't know too much about it. But
I had a chat with Ben Tuesday night, and they've had quite a number of curveballs thrown at them getting the event together. But second year event, the sophomore album, always a tricky event to pull off. Reasonable field, mid-teens, a variety of state-based categories. BMW E30s, Porsche 944s, some of those production cars, improved production cars, and some invited tarmac rally cars and things like that, all running on road legal semi-slick R compound tires, predominantly using the Yokohamas. But 4 hours, 5-minute refueling stops. So basically, a really good chance for state-based competitors to try a little bit of that endurance racing format without necessarily spending big. As Box says, he's looking forward to the Pizza and Pasta Grand Prix, and definitely those Formula 2 and Formula 3 races, although without all the sausage curbs around the outside of the Parabolica. Yeah. I'm not sure we're going to see as spectacular a sight at some of those races this weekend.
And our online floor manager is winding us up, I think.
Yes, I think so. So I think that's probably a good thing to do just quickly. So thanks to everybody. Thanks to Mark. Thank you, Adam, regarding the support of the program. As he said here, not in pit lane, no pit lane. So thank you to that. And for everybody, thanks for your support. We'll be back same time next week. We'll definitely be early because I've got to be up next week at about 4:00 in the morning to head over to Baskerville for the historics, and so we're going to be doing that next week. And keep tuned, because if we've got some way of doing a bit of live streaming from there, even if it's just a pit walk or something, we will do something live from the Baskerville historics. That's coming up next week at the next weekend. Okay, we'll see you all next week on Full Course Yellow. Thanks a lot, guys, for joining us. But to everybody else, thanks for coming, and we'll see you next week on Full Course Yellow and In Pit Lane, 9:30 Thursday night on Channel 31 Melbourne. Until then, thanks for joining us. See you later. Bye-bye.